What's up, everybody? This is Jimmy with Trade Decoded. It is September 24th, 2025. It is 2:40 in the afternoon. Market is still open, and we're done for the day. We've been done since 12 o'clock. Found some great opportunities today, and today we were actually patient, so it's a beautiful thing. I'll explain to you what we found, why we traded what we traded, and a couple of setups that paid really well. Some that were a little bit slow and grindy, but still worked out. You know, the usual stuff. Buy the book, join the Discord. And let's go ahead and get right into it. For whatever reason, my scene switching is not happening. So let's go ahead and see if we can fix that. Please hold. Here we go. Stream Deck. What's the deal? Anyway, pre-market this morning was not something I was a super big fan of. We were trading sideways for the most part, leading into the open. Well, almost all of pre-market post 7 a.m. was sideways, range-bound trading in like a 40-cent range, 50-cent range. That's not an ideal situation. The expected market move today was pretty low, although that turned out to not be accurate, as it usually is not accurate. But I made it very clear today, even though we had a call line and a put line, I told everybody this morning, due to the pre-market not having a real direction and, well, the range being pretty small, I am not going to be attempting to take the opening candle as a trade. However, I did say if we got above $599.82, we'd hope to make it to $600.03, which was barely a 20-cent move. And if we got below $599.20, we'd have much more room, which is what I would have preferred to trade, down to our next support at $598.60. So as you can see here, much more room to the downside than there was to the upside. But we were just aware of resistances and where they existed on the chart. And what kept me out of this, and fortunately, I think my patience helped other people be patient today, I don't think anybody lost because by the time our first trade was over, our win rate, we didn't have any red traders yet. So a good thing. Today was good. Now, as you can see, we got through the put line and continued down. So we did have people who were trading the Qs take this. Again, I was not going to take it, and I made that very clear. Whether that persuades people to not take their own trades or not, I wish everybody would take their own trades, but that's just not the way it typically works. So I don't know if I helped you stay out of a trade that ended up working, but I had reasons for not getting into my trade. And furthermore, as we started to move throughout the day, I explained exactly what I wanted to see in order to justify a trade. So let's go ahead and cover that. As you can see, out of the gate, both charts ran right up to resistance and immediately stopped moving higher. Ideally, if ADD was printing red at that time, I would have taken this here. In fact, I said this out loud. I said, both charts are at resistance, and the only thing keeping me out of puts here is the fact that ADD is printing big green candles. Now, I say that to say this. ADD was printing big green candles, and Qs were going down, and SPY was going down. Okay, this is one of those things where ADD wasn't strong enough to overpower the Qs, so the Qs went with SPY. This is why I watch the Qs so much to justify my trades. The ideal situation would be to have Qs doing this, ADD doing this, and then SPY will be free falling at that point. Okay, that's an A+ setup. However, both charts at resistance. If ADD was printing red or even showing any kind of weakness, I would have leaped at that trade for puts. It didn't happen, so I waited. Qs got down through the put line, continued all the way down to where we got into some tighter ranges of support, which is what these orange lines are. And then we pulled back. And I said, well, if we can make a lower high on Qs, I'd be interested in taking some puts. By now, ADD started to slow its aggressive move to the upside. We got one nice red candle out of ADD. It was wicking on tops of the green candles after that. You look at the ADD on the way up. No resistance whatsoever. Now you could see it starting. That's good enough for me, because if the Qs can put in a lower high, I do believe it's going to break the support it bounced off of and continue down, hopefully. So my goal was to get through this support because of the lower high and head down to the next line where we had an alert sitting there waiting to go. Just needed ADD to help us. So the way it worked out was we got into this trade because we got the lower high. Like I said, I announced to everybody, I just want to see a lower high. And if lower high and ADD looks like it's showing some weakness, I'm going for it. Now, what was good about this is that even though the Qs didn't free fall from that point, ADD started to pick up momentum to the downside. So while Qs was trying to figure out what it wanted to do, i.e., whether it wanted to go up from here or down from here, because ADD kept printing red, it allowed SPY to continue to fall while the Qs were waiting to fall. Through this entire trade, I was talking through the entire thing, saying, guys, as long as Qs stay below this resistance, I'm okay staying in this trade because ADD is going down. That gives me the belief that we're likely to go down from here. It's just taking a little bit longer than I normally like to hold on to my trades for. The moves were slow. And quite frankly, once we got into this trade, we barely saw any points of red for my SPY traders. For my Qs traders, this was a wild ride. My SPY traders or SPX traders or ES traders, the only candle that got a little bit uncomfortable was this guy right here. And this was wild because it pushed up. And then if you remember or you were watching, it slammed down aggressively. And at that point, we gapped down on ADD, which was fantastic. And then I felt a lot better about this move continuing down. Now, as we fell and through this support level here, again, congratulations to everybody who took this trade. We had our first target at this first orange line. And then we got down to the second orange line. Once we got to this orange line and we started pushing through it, I moved my stop loss. I put a mechanical stop loss in place. At that point, I'm hoping to get down to the pink line. It didn't work out that way. Such is life. So I got stopped out of the trade on this pullback. Fortunately, I did because it continued to pull back more and more and more until, well, it ran right back up to resistance. Now that trade right there, looking over here at my TradeZilla, was 87.47% win. This was a banger of a trade. Yes, at one point I think it was up almost 100%, but I tried for a little bit more, but I had a stop loss deep in profit. I'm okay with that. This is a mega home run for me. I don't get 80+% returns on trades, rarely ever. And if I do, usually just luck or by accident or whatever the case. Today, I intentionally held on to this one because I felt good about what I was doing. I wasn't scared, especially once we got deep into profit. It's funny how that works. But then I stopped out with great profit. And then we moved back. Now, I will say this because people get selective hearing sometimes. And I don't want to say selective hearing, but I think people will only hear what they want to hear, myself included, right? And that's because beneath, in our minds, we know what we want to do, and you may be waiting for somebody to say something that incentivizes you to execute what it is you want to do, despite the entire context of what this person may say. In this case, me, okay? I made sure that what I'm about to say in this is what I said out loud while this was going on. But I want you guys to remember, there's aggressive ways to trade and there's conservative ways to trade. While we were pulling back here, okay, ADD was still in a downtrend. And we had all these wicks on tops of the Qs candle. And I said, guys, this would be considered an aggressive entry, but it looks like Qs may end up putting in a lower high. And if that's the case, we're hoping to get back down to this orange line and through that line and down to the pink line. However, the pullback that you would want to buy at is all the way up here at this resistance. And if we pulled back to that and ADD was printing red, that would be the better, more conservative entry. And the reason I bring this up is because we did have a couple of people take this trade here. Now, your stop loss in that point would have been a close back above the resistance that was at the time being created. It wasn't a proven resistance yet, okay? Somebody brought it to my attention, but Jimmy, you said that this might become a lower high. And they're only bringing that up because they took the trade and they lost money on the trade. No trade setup works 100% of the time, but you completely conveniently cut off the rest of what was said at the same time, which was, if this breaks, this could be resistance. It's going to pull back to the next resistance up, or the only resistance up at this point, which you're not going to want to hold on to if you're in puts already. Okay? Now, the reason we were talking about this here at this time wasn't because I was looking for a fresh entry, which is exactly what I said. I was talking to the people who were already in puts from here, saying, if you're already in puts, this looks like it should become a lower high. ADD is still pushing down. We'd hope it rolls over and continues down. No guarantees. I said I would not get into a fresh trade unless we pulled back to resistance. So take that for what it's worth. But please understand that just because it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, in today's world, it may not be a duck, right? So you got to take responsibility for your actions. Okay? I called out my entire trade while I was in it the whole time, explaining exactly why I was doing what I was doing, what I needed to see to stay in it, why I was putting a stop loss in place when I did. And I explain all of it, right? I justify everything that I choose to do, and I try to rationalize it with things that are making me feel comfortable enough to do it. Don't assume that because it looks like it's guaranteed to work, that it is guaranteed to work. It's not ever going to be the case. So be prepared for the fact that the best trade setup still may not work, so that you can be better prepared if it doesn't. Okay? But what did happen? For the people who waited for the pullback to resistance and saw ADD start printing a red candle, which would have been right here, we were looking for that trade to come straight back down to this support here. And looky there. Look at what it did. It held resistance and went straight back down to support. Right here. This was the trade. From there to here. Okay? And we bounced off that support, pulled right back up to the same resistance where I said, guys, every time we've touched this level since we came back here, it's held. If ADD is printing red when we get there, let's go. Same trade all over again. And you got it. Same exact trade. Okay? Now from here, we put in a lower high. Move back down, pull back to that resistance again, where once again, you could have bought your puts here or here. I would prefer here because it's been proven to be a resistance now. Before, your pullback point would have been all the way over here. But now that we have a lower high, that's resistance. So if you take your puts here and you close above it, you stop out. Otherwise, you're hoping to break the support and head down to the next support. Entry, exit. Now, in this case, this was slightly above where we were hoping it was going to go. So that's that. Pull back. Also talking about puts here again, saying, hey, as long as we stay below that trend line, we're hoping to make it back down to this support here. We didn't make it down to that support. We put in a higher low. Higher lows are bad for puts. And you might want to consider tightening up your stop losses. Otherwise, if we break out of this trend down, you have to stop out of the trade. That's it. Okay? Now, with that said, we are in a wedge because we put in a lower highs, higher low. I don't get into trades when we're in a wedge, and neither should you. Okay? Should we get into calls because we broke the wedge to the top side? Not if there's not enough room to justify the move. Meaning, if we break above this and you see resistance right here, are you going to try and trade that? But Jimmy, what if it keeps going? What if it doesn't? What if it doesn't keep going? Okay? Well, what if it gets through this resistance and then we go to the next resistance? That's fine. Is that enough room to justify the trade? Would you look at this move from this teal line to this orange line as being a super clean, super aggressive trade that you're willing to take. If you're willing to take it and you want to ignore resistance A and resistance B, that's up to you. That's on you. And if ADD is printing green during that time, go for it. That's not something that I would have played. It's not something I would have justified trading, but it did work out that way. Okay. Likewise, to the downside, if we were breaking through the trend line and we look left and you see support too close, you got to wait. You got to wait. Okay. Now, we had a new gentleman in Timster in the room. By the way, I want to share something with you guys that he was brand new with us today. Okay. I want to share, where is it? Where is it? Where did it go? I had an image that I clipped that I wanted to share with you guys. And I don't know where it went. But with that said, what it did say was, Jimmy, you just saved me a lot of money by telling me, I was explaining to him why he should not buy puts. He was talking about buying puts here at 1041. I said, Tim, you got to look left, man. I said, look both ways before you cross the road. You're going to get flattened by a bus if you don't. I said, right here, you're going to be running into an area of support that we failed to get through both times we've been down to it. Be careful. He says, all right, I'll hold off. And then we had this bounce. He goes, oh, thank you so much. You saved me so much money. Guys, I'm just here to try and help point out the things to you. When your emotions are being involved and you see a downtrend and you see red in your top 10 and you see all these things, the first thing you want to do is say, yeah, we got to jump into puts right away and we're going to get paid if we do it. In this case, he was literally going to buy the exact bottom and then watch it go really far against him aggressively, and it would have been all in hope or a big loss, which we don't like to do either one of those. However, we came back down. We put in a lower high, and ADD started resuming its trend to the downside. And this was the last trade I think we called out. No, we did one more. I said, guys, this time we are down to this support, but we put in a fresh lower high. As long as we stay below that resistance there, I'm looking for the pink line on the Qs. That was your entry candle here. ADD was printing red. We talked through this whole trade, kept everybody in it so they wouldn't get panicked. I said, guys, this is looking good. I think we get to the pink line. We got to the pink line. As soon as it beeped, you exited the trade. Okay, we're not looking for a huge move, but this was a nice move. This was about a 50, 60 cent move. Okay, with very little uncomfortableness, right? Some people didn't like bouncing around here, which I understand. But as long as we stay below the resistance, we need the resistance to be the reason we can justify staying in the trade. And it did exactly that, and it ended up being a beautiful move to the downside. Shortly thereafter, we started to sell off. We got through the pink line on both charts. And right before I got off, I said, you know what? Maybe we could find us one more trade. There was no opportunity in this move down. We pulled back to what? To resistance right here. Blambo and everybody else who was still in the room. You can verify this. I know you can. This was my parting gift for you guys before I got off the mic today. I said, this looks like a great opportunity for some fresh put entries. ADD's printing red at this point, and we're pulled back to a resistance on Qs. And as long as we could stay, we didn't have this trend line there yet, but resistance, it's right here. Look for the entry. Where are we looking to go? Well, we stopped drawing targets. So right before I got off the mic, I said, Qs are slowing down a little bit. ADD starting to print green. I'd probably take myself out of this trade at this point. It did continue down just a little bit longer after that. So we would have left some money on the table. But nonetheless, this was a dollar move in just a few short minutes. Beautiful trade to the downside. Congratulations to those of you who caught that. And that was it for me on this particular day. Market is not really sure what it wants to do. Jerome Powell yesterday came out and said, the stock market's overvalued, something I've been saying for months and months and months, but nobody wants to hear that because, well, it can only go up. And of course, with our long-term investments, we do like to make money as the markets go up. But we're going to wrap this up. So I thank you guys for watching. I hope you had a fantastic day. Till tomorrow. Love you guys. See you.